Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Sayyidina wa Mawlana bil Qasimi Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Wa ala al-baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin al-ma'sumin al-mazlumin. الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. أما بعد، قال الله الحكيم في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى وصدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. This weekend begins a weekend of festivity, a weekend of celebration. Firstly, because these next 3 days are in relation to 3 births as we come to celebrate and rejoice the coming into this world of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, his brother al-Fadl Abbas, and his son Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam. But at the same time, the month of Sha'aban is also important because it marks the end of the Islamic year. You see, for different types of people, the year begins at different stages. If you're at school, if you're at university, the academic year may begin in September or October. For others, if you're in primary school, it's possible that it begins in August. For a farmer, traditionally, once upon a time, the year used to begin when spring comes, so the 21st of March. The Islamic year, you could say, for Ammat al-Muslimin begins in the month of Muharram. But for the Salikin ilallah, for those people who are making their way towards Allah, the actual year begins in the month of Ramadan. And so therefore Sha'aban symbolizes the end of a year. Sha'aban is the month of reward. All the hard work you've done in these last 11 months. And you'll see the hard work begins in the month of Ramadan. The fasting and the praying and the mercy and the repentance. All of that takes place in the month of Ramadan, and then you kind of build the year up. So it gets to the month of Muharram. Again, there's a peak. Then perhaps it may drop again. Then a peak again. Arba'in comes along. Then a drop again. Then a peak again, Fatimiyya. And so forth. Then a drop again. Then the month of Rajab, Amir al-Mu'mineen. And in this way, all the way to the month of Sha'aban. So therefore, this is the month of mercy. This is the month of the Ummah. This is the month of Rahmah. And this is why on the very first day, what do you see? Well, Lady Zainab, Imam Hussein. And tonight, we're here to celebrate the life of Imam Hussein. Though perhaps within the calendars, there may have been a push in terms of dates, again, going on the moon. Whether we're celebrating Sayyida Zainab, or we're celebrating, for example, Imam Hussein, or we're celebrating Abul Fadl Abbas, or we're celebrating Imam Zain al-Abidin, the reality is that the first 15 days of this month are marked with births. Mercy upon mercy, nur upon nur. And so therefore there's a secret behind these 15 days that we need to appreciate and we need to extract for our own benefit. And of course the benefit of our community. Look, last year I said that the month of Rajab is the month of Allah, it's the month of tawhid, it's the month of wilayah. And these 3 months, Rajab, Sha'aban, and Ramadan, again, are very important. But the one thing I did say last year was that though the month of Rajab is the month of Tawheed, it's the month of individuality. Because look, you can't help other people. And you can't ascend to great heights until you don't take care of your own soul. The month of Rajab, which we've left yesterday, is that month that provides us with the foundations of Tawheed, monotheism, in every respect. The highest level of monotheism is what? To be able to see God in multiplicity, to be able to see the unity in multiplicity. Tawheed is a maqam that all of the prophets came to teach us. But Tawheed is the beginning of coming to understand God It's not the end. The end is wahda, the end is ahadiyya. It's at that maqam where you see unity first and then you see multiplicity within everything. So at this moment in time, they say the maqam of tawhid is such that if I look at my book or I look at my camera or I look at my car, whatever it may be, the one thing that I see those different objects, but within that I see God. The final maqam, which Amir al-Mu'mineen and Sayyid al-Shuhada teach us, the maqam of, as the Quran says, Ya ayyatuha an-nafs al-mutma'inna irji ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyya. That maqam is the maqam when I look at creation, all I see is unity. But in the batin, I see the multiplicity. There's a difference here. The difference is this. When I look at the world, Zahiri, I should, if I'm at the maqam of Tawheed, Zahiran, I should be able to see multiplicity. Batinan, I see Wahdat. I see Allah. But the maqam of Wahda itself, which is above the maqam of Tawheed, according to mystics, is that maqam where I see outwardly unity and inwardly then I come to see the multiplicity within creation. You see, it turns everything 180 degrees. Well, look, I'm not here to give a discussion on Irfan. If that was the case, we'd go into the hadith of Haqiqa of Amir al-Mu'mineen and go through the different levels that Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen takes Kumail until Kumail gets to that level where he senses or tastes ahadiyat, that he also begins at the level of Tawheed and he ends at that level of ahadiyat. And Amir al-Mu'mineen does that within one night, because only the Imam can take a person from maqam to maqam in one night like this, until the end where he says, now close the lights, or or as he says, extinguish the lantern, because now morning has come. People think, how's it possible in 5 lines that morning comes? No, this is maqamat. Extinguish the lantern means close the light of your aql now, because the aql can only see multiplicity. That's why the aql has been created. This is why ulul albab, as the Quran says, are people who see Allah within creation. He says, now close this. Why? Because that Nur Azali has shone. And what is Nur Azali? Nur Ahadiyat of Allah. But look, I'm not here to give an irfani commentary on these particular ahadith, though I would like to give one, but that's not what I'm here for, and it probably will be the first time, because nobody else has touched this, at least in the English language, as hadith of haqiqah. Maybe one day we'll go through 5 or 6 lectures on this, which I am planning to record one day. But the reality is this haqiqah is linked to Sha'aban, and the reason being is this, is that the dhuhur of rahmah comes in the first 15 days. Why is that? Sayyid al-Shuhada is the dhuhur of rahmah. Extension of Sayyid al-Shuhada is Abul Fadl Abbas. Nurun ala nur. Nur again, Imam Zain al-Abidin, Sayyid Zainab. In both of these realities, what you see is this. You see how to follow on the path of wilayah, and you see what wilayah itself is. Imamat symbolizes Hujjatullah. And those who follow Hujjatullah become fani in Imamat, also become an extension of that Imamat itself. What is Sayyidah Zainab and what is Abul Fadl Abbas? Look, let me take it into this particular direction. Let's begin this journey. Tonight is a Nurani night. So let's begin on the concept of Nur itself. Allah says in the Quran, the Prophet of God is leaving this world. قُلْ لَا أَسَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا. Say to them, I don't want any ajr, إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. إِلَّا مَوَدَّةَ. Mawadda, active love for my near ones. According to the likes of Fakhr Razi and, for example, Juwayni and Ghazali and Tabari and so forth, Qurba is Fatima alayhi salam. Right? The irony of it, that according to our brothers Ahl Sunnah, in fact, Qurba is Zahra, right? For ahlul-bayt, for followers of ahlul-bayt, it's wider than that. Qurba is the 5, and in fact, according to the Sufis, it's 5. Most of them happen to be Sunni. For the average Sunni, it's Zahra alayhi salam, and for the Shia, it's the full 14 infallibles, who we would call infallible, and they would call people who are mahfuz, meaning Allah protects them from sin. And we, of course, terminology may change or differ, but the concept is the same, that there are people who don't sin. Take that a step further, right? Take it a step further. What do you see? What you see is this, that if a person does not give the jaza of qurba, once upon a time I did say this, but I'm just going to develop the discussion. It's like a person who goes into a shop. Let's say today I go shopping, I go into Tesco's, Waitrose, Sainsbury's, whatever you may have, Walmart. I go there and I take something and I walk out with it without paying for it. What would you say? You would say you've not given the ajr of this, so therefore you're a thief. Similarly, if a person accepts Islam, so the hadith says a person comes to the Prophet, he says, I want to give you ajr, he wanted to give him money, wealth. You brought us Islam, we want to give you this ajr. Wahi comes down immediately. Say to them, no, I don't want any ajr. Ajr is illa al-mawaddata fil qurbah. All I want is you to love my near ones, right? Human beings become, or Muslims become like thieves if they don't give the ajr of the Prophet. And the ajr of the Prophet is this, to love his near ones. Mawadda. What is mawadda? We mentioned this before, but I'm building up to something. Mawadda is active love. And what is active love? Active love is shown. It's not just hidden in the heart. Look, the difference, therefore, between Shia and Sunnis is this. Sunnis love ahlul-bayt, they keep it in the heart. Shias love ahlul-bayt, they manifest that love. And what does that mean? That comes into two forms, tawalli and tabarri. And as you know, both of these two forms are what mawadda symbolizes. Tawalli, love, emphasis of love, for those people who love Ahlul Bayt or for that which Ahlul Bayt loves. And tabarri, disassociation from that which Ahlul Bayt dislike. And that's why the great schisms of the past have taken place. So in this way, what is Sayyidah Zainab? Sayyidah Zainab is that person who was fani, absolute fani, with an imama. And what does that mean? When people ask the question, they say, is Sayyidah Zainab ma'asum or not? Whether she's ma'asum or not, remember this, if she's not ismat kubra in the way Ahlul Bayt are, she's definitely ismat sughra. Why? Because when a person becomes fani in the dhat of the imam, then they automatically become privy to walayat qamariya. If Ahlul Bayt are walayat shamsi or walayat shamsiya, Sayyidah Zainab Abul Fadl Abbas have walayat qamariya. This is why Abbas is known as Babul Khawaj. Why? Walayat qamari. What is the job of a qamar? What is the job of the moon? The moon has no existence of its own when you look from the earth upwards. What do you see? On the 13th of Rajab or on the 15th of Sha'aban, you will see the moon in its brightness. So bright and so big. But the reality is that that light is not the moon's light. It's reflecting the sun's light. Walayat qamari in this respect, that Sayyidah Zainab and Abul Fadl Abbas are both privy to, is because of the annihilation with an imama. And because they're annihilated with an imama, all they reflect is the light of imama. All they reflect is the light of nabuwa. But who would have thought so? Well, in essence, look and see whose maqam is greater. Just on the balance of probability, Zainab, there is no other Zainab than Zainab. And this is why when we call her Zainab, Zinatul Ab, it's not just father, because Ab is also Abawain, for example. Walidain, it's both mother and father. Now imagine, look, if tomorrow my son became a mujtahid, Ayatullah, Marja, doctor, lawyer, somebody very great in the world, I could turn around and say he's my Zina. But if my son hasn't superseded me, for argument's sake, or he's not at the same level for argument's sake, can he be my Zina? He can be my Zina if, whether it's social, spiritual, akhlaqi, there's something that he has, whether it be akhlaqi, for example, his manners are better, his ethics are better. So there's something where you become a Zina. Imagine the maqam of Zainab, when your father is Amir al-Mu'mineen, and your mother is Fatima al-Zahra, your father is Sahib al-Kawthar, and your mother is Ismatullah al-Kubra wa Hujjatullahi ala al-Hujaj. Imagine what Zainab then must be, that Rasulullah comes and names her Zainab. And imagine what Abul Fadl Abbas must be, when your father is Ali Murtada, when your father is Haydar and he names you Abbas. It's honestly, one has to think about this, that who are these people? It's not something small. And look at the family they're coming from for them to be like that. It is by virtue of the fact that look at their family, and you could turn around to me and say, what do you mean family? Look at Musa, look at Lut, look at all of these other people. Yes, maybe. Look at Adam's son. Okay, let's look at them. Adam, but what about Hawa? What about Nuh's wife? What, there's some way, because look, it's a complex formula. So there's some way, somewhere there could be a spiritual influence. But can the same be said to Zainab? When your father is Amir al-Mu'mineen and your mother is Zahra, and your grandfather is Khatam al-Nabiyyin, and your other grandfather is Abu Talib, and your grandmother is Fatima bint Asad, who the Kaaba opened for, and your other grandmother is Khadijah al-Kubra, who gave all of her wealth towards Islam. When you look at the perfection on all sides, then you come to understand maqam of Zainab. And go to the other side and see. What do you see? You see a mother sitting there, and she looks up at a small child, and she says to that child, son, that is Hussein. Follow that Hussein. He's your deen. He's your Quran. He's your iman. If he sits, you sit. If he stands, you stand. If he goes out, you go out. She's given the best tarbiyah that you can give. You don't need to teach your children philosophy and theology. And you just need to teach them a ta'at of the imam. That is the imam. Follow that imam. That's where the likes of Abul Fadl Abbas come. And that's why he's known as Bab al-Hawaj. So you see, when you see things like this, when you've got examples like this, you've come into this month of Sha'aban. And so therefore utilize this Sha'aban so that your wilaya is such, a ta'at of the imam is such. For that to take place, though, for you to actualize Imam Hussein, requires you to follow in the way of Imam Hussein, otherwise the heart becomes najis. How do you follow the way of Imam Hussein? Well, look, the first most important responsibility is to Allah. Your prayers, your fasting, your hajj, your zakat, your khums, right? Make sure that that's above board. But the second thing which is important, now look, if the month of Rajab was the month of individuality, the month of Sha'aban is a community month, it's a communal month. So therefore, we need to see how much selfless service we're giving, how many people we're helping. Helping people begins not just by handing out food. The first stage of it begins when you don't talk ill of someone. That's when the first stage begins. When you're not argumentative to somebody, second stage. You could be very right in what you're saying, but you don't need to emphasize it to somebody enough that they feel embarrassed. Third stage. The control of the tongue is the first stage of selfless service, because the vast majority of pain which is given because of the human tongue. And I say this for all of us, look, we're all evolving. I'm not sitting here having reached maqam ahadiyat and come back from the journey and saying I'm insani kamil. And anybody who does is trying to take the position of the Imam or the Prophet. Yes, in a time, if you look at what Sheikh Sadduq says, Sheikh Sadduq, when he talks about the alim, says the alim is that person who is past the maqam of kathrat, and he sees wahdat. Unfortunately, that isn't the case in this modern day age. But at least we can say that we're working towards that. As they say, what is the maqam of tawhid? Kamal al-tawhid is what? Kamal al-tawhid nafi sifat. It's when all of the sifat annihilate and all you see is that one. These are not my words, these are Amir al-Mu'mineen's words. So similarly for us, what is important when it comes to selfless service is that first of all begin by this. Unless true Hussein cannot be understood, especially in this day and age, it's very easy now to slander and to backbite. How do we do that? Well, we've all got a phone. We all get WhatsApp. The minute the WhatsApp comes, we forward things on. That forward that we forward on without verification is tu'mah. And with verification, if it leads to fasad and fitna, is ghiba and haram. And this is why, on a personal level, I've pretty much left every chat. Not because of the fact that, look, everybody's busy in their life, but I think fundamentally because these forwards are destroying us. as a community, because it's leading to gossip. But yeah, look, my discussion is on social media. I don't even want to touch social media. I don't even want to touch WhatsApp. The fact is that we're looking at Hussein, and Hussein stands for sacrifice. So now come on to this. Look, I've still got 5 hadith that I want to give about Sayyid al-Shuhada today. I want to talk about Abu Fadl Abbas today. I want to talk about Imam Zain al-Abidin today. But before I do that, it's also important for me to say that, look, our community in Aberdeen are celebrating their completion anniversary. And it's been a number of years in now that they've been serving the community. And so therefore, we're here to pray for them that Allah helps them to continue to do the good work. It was this time a number of years ago when they had their grand opening. And similarly, I'd like to say to everyone, look, and bear this in mind, we're, mashallah, one of the best communities in the world. The secret of our community being one of the best is that regardless of our difference, we're united. The month of Sha'aban is a month of selflessness. Just remember this. It's not wrong to have 2 centers. It's not wrong to have 3 centers. You know why? Because we have different needs. What becomes wrong is that we use those centers as a purpose of division. Now look, I spend my time in Edinburgh. The wonderful way that the elders go from one center to another. So for example, we've got a big community. We've got 2 centers, mashallah. We go peacefully from one to the other. Why? There may be 2 communities with different needs. Let's go to Glasgow, multiple different centers. Don't look at the number of centers as a wrong thing. Because why? Because each community may have different needs. The trick is to go to each other's centers with ihtiram, adab, to promote each other, to understand each other's needs. That's what's important. Because otherwise, look, like you come to a city like London and you find 11, 12 centers spread around in a 2.5, 3 mile radius. You think, oh my God, look how many centers there are. That's not the issue. The issue, everybody has their own needs, right? Where the unity comes in, where the togetherness comes in is important. Advocacy for each other. The beauty of our community is that we nip negativity in the bud quickly. Just remember. So, inshallah, one day there'll be a 3rd center in Edinburgh, 4th center in Edinburgh. In Aberdeen, there'll be 2nd, 3rd, 4th. We want these centers to be there. We want a center at every corner to be there. Why? Because we want every community of ours to benefit. Yes, it's important for us to stay together, but as a community expands, it becomes huge. Sometimes a center may not be big enough to hold that particular community. And sometimes it's more convenient to go and recite Jum'ah 5 miles away as opposed to traveling 5 miles. So remember, there's nothing wrong in it. But at the same time, bear in mind, this is the month of Sha'aban. What does Imam Hussein want from us? He wants unity. All of us should be united. And remember, the more that we expand, the more good work that we do, Shaitan doesn't like it. And he never will like it. So what does Shaitan want to do? Shaitan will always create wahm. This is why they say when you go on the level of, when you transverse your spirituality, to get to the level of aql, intellect, requires you to get over the level of wahm. And that's where Shaitan will come and whisper to you. And you may be right in your thinking, but the negative whisperings that happen, you may, God forbid, end up attacking a person who is also right in his own way. Because remember, we see truth through different prisms. Yes, there's an absolute truth, but we're on different stages. And this is why the Imam used to say he doesn't reveal everything to everyone because everybody's on a different stage, different maqam. And look, not that there will ever, inshallah, there will never be a problem in Scotland. But it's important because it's the month of Sha'aban, and the month of Sha'aban is the month of unity. How wonderful would it be that each one of our centres, be they in Aberdeen, Edinburgh, or Glasgow, give gifts to each other's centres? How wonderful would that be? Now, people outside of Scotland thinking, why is he saying this? Listen, and I'll be very open with you. We have the best community here across Scotland. And the secret is that if we start doing small gifts and things and the way that we do for our Christian communities, our Jewish communities, our Hindu communities, our atheist communities, It's important, even our parliamentarians, we give gifts, and Sunni and Shia, but it's important to give gifts to each one of our community members. If one of our members of 10,000 people, what do we? It's not possible to do that, but for each one of our centres. So each centre, let's say there's 10 centres in Scotland, we need to give gifts to each one of them. Why? Because this is the way that we build love for the future. First thing, first message there. And I still have to move on to the 5 hadith yet, but I think it's important to mention this. Tomorrow, let's say, Sabs is giving a gift to Ja'fariya and Watt is giving a gift to Ja'fariya and Sabs, and they're giving one to Imam Ali Center, and they're all giving one to Al-Huda, and Al-Huda is giving one to Al-Mahdi. When these gifts come, the reason why it's important, because ahlul-bayt have taught us give gifts to one another to enhance love, firstly. Secondly is this, look, you've got to call a spade a spade. Yesterday, you all know that there was a bomb blast in Peshawar. That bomb blast was devastating because it killed, last count was 89 people. And increasing, children died in that. The pathway of Hussein has always been to at least voice when dhulm takes place. We've got to voice it, right? We've got to voice it. But how do you voice dhulm? It's not easy. Imam Ali says, be ready for malama, right? Malamat. Be ready for people to, in effect, attack you when you stand up against dhulm. I said, but standing up against dhulm means we'll just go out and protest. That's not even the beginning of dhulm. That's just you expressing your sadness, you could say, or your anger at an oppression that's taken place. You've been given the right in a Western country to go out and protest. That right is there. You go and you do that. And we feel that we've done our responsibility against dhulm. That's not our responsibility against dhulm. That's okay, fine, we've gone and expressed it, but that doesn't even make the papers. That doesn't make a difference. So when we talk about wanting to express, how would you do it? Logically thinking, right? An attack has taken place in Peshawar. We need to appeal to who? Pakistani government, let's say, the United Nations, to our own government, to at least send a kind of a diplomatic message to say, listen, calm it down over there. Make sure you provide security. How do we do that? The only way we can do that is if we engage with the government and the United Nations and interfaith and all of these other things. But the minute that we do that, you know that there will always be somebody who will dislike that. It is important for us, if we're standing up against dhulm, to be engaging with people. And we're going to be engaging with people you don't like and you don't get along with. And I can only remember what Ayatollah al-Udhama Marhum Hakim used to say, not just individually to me, but to all of our members from Edinburgh and Glasgow who would go and visit him independently, that this is not an easy pathway. You must engage with people that you won't agree with. But that is the only way to get that message over. Look, what do? We can write a letter to the consulate, the Pakistani consulate. Where will that get to, let's be honest? But when we apply pressure, when the Scottish government or the UK government applies pressure, then people listen, or the United Nations applies pressure, then it brings others into pressure to be able to then go and provide security. For that to happen, just standing outside Glasgow and chanting outside the Pakistani consulate is not going to help you. It may do to an extent, but let's be honest, it won't do. Change only comes when there's dialogue taking place, when there's diplomacy taking place. Diplomacy only comes when there's akhlaq. If you're shouting at somebody, you're showing anger towards somebody, it doesn't happen. So look, these are all the things that we have to do. Yesterday, there was a blast, and God forbid there is again, but there probably will be. Always have those channels in place. And remember, Imam Ali says that there will be people who will dislike it. There will be people who may call you names. Imam says, let them do it, and you carry forward in the way that you need to. Why? Because you have a responsibility. Allah has blessed the people of Scotland that you've got the flag, that wherever there's genocide in the world, the only Shia community in the world, you could say Scotland, who sits on those platforms to be able to make a difference. Whether that be in Aberdeen, whether that be in Glasgow, whether that be in Dundee, whether that be in Edinburgh, you are individually doing good work. And we should continue to do good work as a collective. So that, bear that in mind. Look, people will say things against you. Remember one thing, what Imam alayhi salam says. Imam says two things. Remember this. If you are guilty of something wrong, then ask Allah for repentance. Why? Because ultimately Allah is the judge. And if you're not guilty, then thank Allah that thawab is coming your way, right? I don't want to delve on this too much. The reason why is that this is only one part of the movement of Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein is greater than this, for what I'm saying. But the reason it's important for me to say this, and I'm saying this, and I've only said it in 5 minutes or less than that. We could go on for an hour on this, but 5 minutes, is because of the fact that we as a community have a huge potential. We have a huge potential to help our Afghani brothers and sisters and children and grandparents or elders and otherwise. We have a great potential to help those Pakistani oppressed. And remember one thing, when it comes to oppression, you can't be selective. So it has to be the Christian community who are under threat over there. It has to be, for example, the Parsi community. It has to be the Afghani community. It has to be the Shia community. It has to be Bahara. All of these communities are under threat. We've got to help them. You can't be selective, right? You can't just say, I'm going to stand up for this cause and not this cause. And of course, you may say that it's not possible to stand up for everything. Well, then if it isn't, then build a relationship such that at least you can influence or you can help those people who you have power to help over, right? So bear this in mind. Of course, it's illogical for me to say that if there's 100 different issues taking place, you can do that. Help 100 people, no. You may have to be selective. You may have to look at on the balance of probability where I can make the most effect. But it has to be there. Why? And remember this also. Run away from fitna. Kun fil fitnati ka ibn al-labun. Right? Go back to what Imam Ali alayhi salam says. Run away from fitna. Move away from fitna. Stay away from fitna. What did Imam Hussein do? Imam Hussein moves from Medina to Mecca. Why? Imam Hussein did not want war, did not want bloodshed, did not want confusion. Had there been a war in Medina, there would have been confusion. Medina to Mecca, Mecca to Kufa. Kufa, on the borders of Kufa, is shifted to Karbala. Purpose of this, very important. He's moving away or taking fitna away so that there's no fitna within the community, right? This is what's important. Akhlaq was there. There was never a time where Imam Hussein insulted Yazid. Even when it comes to your enemies, there has to be decorum there. There has to be respect there. Respect in the sense that there shouldn't be any negativity there. Remember, we dislike the negative qualities, the vice. As far as the people are concerned, in Alam Wahdat, everybody's coming from the same place. They're all coming from ilm of Allah. Allah's created everyone. He created me, created you, created the sun, He created the moon. I have no negativity with the people. It's the negative qualities that need to be looked at. And so therefore, when you look at it like that, you don't attack people on the basis of person. So remember this, because remember, as our community expands, and the community will continue to expand, and from all of the good work, but there will always be egos in place. You know, everybody is faniya fillah. And whenever the ego comes up, whenever you feel that you have to put your point forward and you have to argue, just remember one thing. What is this going to achieve, if it's going to achieve anything? And second, is there a better route? So again, all of those things to one side. I do hope, now that I'm coming onto these 5 traditions, that at least our centers can give presence to one another. Let's collectively bring everyone together, you know. In Glasgow, we have 4 or 5 centers. Let's give all of our marakis, all of our masajid, all of our Hussainiyas. If this is the month of Sha'aban, let's give a box of chocolates to each other's managements, if not flowers and so forth. Let's build that love up so that we're united, that we are a united community, so that we know that there's no negativity. And believe me, when we do this, then the other communities will follow. Have you not seen the divisions at the moment within the Sunni community, for example? The Barelwi community in Glasgow, multiple divisions between the Barelwis and the Deobandis. And again, we want to help them. What we're showing is that we're showing them the methodology of bringing peace. By giving flowers, by giving gifts to our centers, they will learn from us as well. And the only problem there is that there's no unity in terms of the fact that there's many khulafa, there's many kind of leaders. But at least here, the beauty of Scotland the Shia community is that the ulama united. All of the ulama talk to one another united, and this is what's important. That needs to trickle down. So anyhow, without going too much into it, the reason I say all of this is because Sha'aban is a month of the people. If this was the month of Rajab, we'd be talking about tawhid, dua, dhikr, wird, how individually to get to a high maqam. But because this is in itself the month of the people, selfless service, I said, look, the first thing is the tongue. But then after you've controlled the tongue, then help the people. Then go out with the food parcels. Then go out with helping those individuals who require it. Then let's organize ourselves. Look, there's so many people suffering. And sometimes it makes me cry that hundreds of people are emailing and there's no way I can even get back to all of them. And even if all of our ulama in Scotland work together, it's difficult to answer everyone. But we've got to still help people. We've got to still move in the right direction to be able to help people to fulfill the haja they have. So look, that's the month of Sha'aban. And I've put all of this out so that I can quickly move on to the main thing that I want to move on to. Because I have to do something tabligh, as you know. We have to do fadail, we have to do tabligh. Now we're going to move on to the bit of fadail. And this is the part that I've been waiting for as well. Before I do that, let's all recite a salawat together on Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. So, in essence, we have to see what the Imam wants from us. This religion of Islam, inna ad-din inda Allah al-Islam, this Islam is monotheism. This monotheism, wilaya, has been taught to all of the prophets. And so therefore, it's important for us to understand, what does Sayyid al-Shuhada want? What do the ahlul-bayt want? Nothing is by coincidence. Here we're in the month of mercy, month of the Prophet, month of Sha'aban. The month of Sha'aban is the month of salawat. So remember this in mind. In this month, for as much as you can, give salawat. Especially those people who, as they say, are going through difficulty. Make another in this month. 10,000 salawat in this month. You'll see the benefits of it. 10,000 salawat in hadiyah. If it's health, hadiyah to Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. If it's anything worldly, hadiyah to Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. 10,000 salawat. You'll see the benefits of this. This is the month where your promotion will happen. This is the month where you'll pass your exams. Why? Blessings of Allah, or at least the foundations will begin for success, both spiritual and worldly. For those of us who are getting married, alhamdulillah, there'll be good news coming. I know for a fact within both Edinburgh and Glasgow communities, people who will be getting married very soon. And the news gets to me, even though maybe I shouldn't be having all of this news, but inshallah, when it gets out, it's a happy occasion for all of our communities. That when one member or two members of our communities get married, remember this, barakah, rahmah, mawadda, all of these flow. It strengthens our ties in our communities, it strengthens the bonds in our communities, brings in fresh ideas, brings in mercy of Allah when another ahlul-bayt comes in. So this is the month where good foundations are there for those who are getting engaged. Allah bless their engagements for those who are getting married. Allah bless their marriages for those people who are having their marriage contracts recited. May Allah bless you all in this month. Why? Month of Sha'aban. Month of Sha'aban is a month of blessing, so bear that in mind. It's a good thing to start things off in this month because of the fact that it's Mansub for Rasulullah and his family. The first 15 days of this month, you'll see multiple births come into play, celebrations of births. Coming onto the fadail of Imam Hussein, look, I wanted to give you 5 ahadith, 5 narrations. The reason why these 5 narrations are important are because they outline what the Imam is, what the Imam wants from us. In the first tradition, you'll see that a person goes to the Imam alayhi salam, and he says to the Mawla, show us or show me your haqiqah, your reality. Now remember, there's a difference between the reality of the Imam and our reality. Why is that? Our reality in the Allah is different from their reality. They are the jam of Asma and Sifat of Allah. They are the madhar of the Ism of Allah itself. And we are the madhar of Ism of Allah. We may be tarkeeb of different Asma, but we're not the manifestation of the Ism of Allah itself. Imam is, so it's all encompassing. So just remember, the wujud of the Imam encompasses all of creation. Because the name Allah itself is Ism al-Jam, it brings together all of the Asma, Sifat of Allah. So therefore in creation, Imam is the coming together, the Jam, the togetherness of all of creation. So his haqiqah contains mine and yours and everything else's. So therefore, to ask the question, what is your haqiqah? In and of itself, we cannot understand it. Imam says, look, you can't understand it. He says, look, show me. Tell me. And the Imam does. And remember, it's difficult for the Imam can definitely show his haqiqah, but it's difficult for an individual to comprehend it. As we said, the Imam is the jam of the Asma and Sifat of Allah. With tarkeeb of Asma, formulation of 1, 2, 3. For example, let's say water. Water contains Latif, Rahmah of Allah. For example, Hayy, Al-Hayy. When these three names come together, they could equal water. Human being is a tarkeeb of certain names. But Allah is Ism Jam for all of the names. And Imam's Madhar al-Ajaib, let's say, Mahdar of Asma and Sifat. So Imam contains everything. So all of our haqiqah is within the Imam. So for us to comprehend that is difficult. Imam is the Madahir of Allah itself, Madhar of Allah itself. Whereas we are Madhar of maybe a couple of Asma. So our full potential is mahdud to those Asma, whereas Imam encompasses everything. I don't want to go too deep into this because I'll have to explain the philosophy behind this. But just take it at that. This is why Wajhullah basically is all of the Asma and Sifat of Allah, which is the Imam itself. Our Imam is Wajhullah. Rasulullah is Wajhullah. And everything, remember, pertains back to the Prophet. The Prophet of God itself, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, is the Wajhullah. Wajhullah basically is the Asma and Sifat of Allah in creation, so we see them. Right? So we see the dhuhur of those Asma and Sifat, which is the Prophet. Imam contains all of our haqiqah. And because the Imam contains all of our haqiqah, what does that mean? So this guy, this individual, this companion, you could say, comes up, and this hadith is from the 6th Imam, by the way, comes up to say the shuhada, says, shows you haqiqah, says, look, you won't be able to take it. Show me. Okay. Imam removes the veil. Hadith says his beard and his hair go white. He comes in a swoon, he collapses. And then when he comes back to consciousness, he's forgotten the hadith. And the hadith says, it was the mercy of Allah that made you forget. Why? Had you remembered, you wouldn't have been able to take it. And we find this in other traditions as well. That when people have come to ask the Imam for the haqiqah, when the Imam unveils it, they go into a swoon and they forget. Or they die. Because of the inability to be able to take this nur. So the pure nur has to come through filters. That filter, before you can get to Imam, there has to be physical manifestation as well as internal manifestation. Now you understand why Abul Fadl Abbas is known as Bab of Hussein, Bab al-Hussein. Because before you go to Imam Hussein, protocol tells you that you go to the Bab and you knock on the door. Abbas alayhi salam is a filter. When you get closer, you see Habib ibn Madahir. Habib ibn Madahir is a filter, then you get to Imam Hussein. In both of these individuals, what do you recite? Assalamu alayka ya ayyuha al-abdu salih al-muti'u lillahi wa li rasulihi wa li amir al-mu'minin. Who is Abdul Salih? Abdul Salih is that person who's fani within the dhat of the Imam, who is known as Sahib al-Sir. In the words of Kumail, Alastu Sahib al-Sirrik? Am I not your Sahib al-Sir? What does Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen say? He says, yes, Bala, Bala, yes, you are. What does Sahib al-Sir mean? Sahib al-Sir, Urf interprets it as a person you divulge secrets to, right? He's just Sahib al-Sir, Ashab al-Sir, let's say. Who are they? For us, it's Abu Dhar Salman Miqdad, because Imam Ali told them secrets. Your Sahib al-Sir could be your best friend. That's not the actual meaning behind Sahib al-Sirrik. Alastu Sahib al-Sirrik. Sahib al-Sir is a person who at the maqam of Sir is connected to the Imam. What is the maqam of Sir? The different maratib al-wujud is this. Qalb is the heart, the level of the heart. Qalb, aql, and then Sir. Sir is that when it looks up, it sees the ahadiyat of Allah, right? It is at the level of Asma and Sifat. Basically, what Kumail was saying here, and again, I've used terminology which probably will not be understood by the vast majority. And again, I don't have time to explain it, but I'll mention to you a point why he uses the term Sir. Sahib Sir is that maqam. For example, the Sir of the Prophet is the Arsh of Allah itself. It's where Wahi comes from. For a Wali, Ilham comes from that Sir. Sir is that thing. If you go to any of our Urafa, you'll see when they talk about the concept of Sir, Sir is that medium that Allah communicates with you through. Kumail is saying that your haqiqah communicates with me at that maqam that Allah communicates with me at. I'm connected to you from there. That's what he's saying. Alasta Sahib al-Sirr. That's why Imam says, okay, fine, I'll tell you something. And then he goes into this hadith of haqiqah. Kumail is in touch with the Imam at that level. If that's the case, and Kumail is only at the level of tawhid, he's at the level of kathrat. He hasn't got to the highest level, he's at the level of qalb and aql. Imagine what Abbas is at the level of. On the day of Ashura, from the night to the morning of Asr time, Imam Hussein took 72 companions through all of the maratib al-wujud and all of the suluk in Allah until they came to maqam ahadiyat and they came back again. That's what Hussein ibn Ali did. That is only an Imam can do. Otherwise, you can spend the entire duration of your life trying to get to a maqam you wouldn't be able to. The lutf of the Imam is important in this. First hadith. Second hadith is this. It's mentioned Amali of Shaykh al-Saduq from the sixth Imam. He says that a person who goes to the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada, says a person who goes to the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada, a number of things happen. If they accept the Imam as wajib al-ta'a, if they accept the Imam as Imam wajib al-ta'a, right? What are those things? First thing is this. All of the sins are wiped out. The second thing is sins. All of the future sins are wiped out. Third thing is this. In 70 maqamat, Imam Hussein will come and do shifa for them. Why? Because shifa itself, or take it the other way, tawassul, when you do to the Imam, tawassul is a way of jazb, of Allah's rahmah. You're looking for an excuse to grab the rahmah of Allah. Tawassul is that. Why? Because the Imam is madhar al-ajaib. So because of that, tawassul to the Imam and his shifa increases this velocity of mercy of Allah that comes down onto the person. You know, if there's any Catholic listening to this discussion, and I apologize, we've used very extensively difficult words, but it's like a saint. Why does one go and take the intercession of a saint? Because they've reached a station that with God they're lofty, so they're able to bring down the mercy. Mercy is already coming down on Hussein ibn Ali. When you connect onto that mercy, then more mercy comes down onto you, right? Enough mercy is not coming down onto you in the way that is coming down to Hussein. Why? Because Hussein's capacity is massive. Your capacity is limited because your density is limited. His density is more. His wujud is more, your wujud is less. So at 70 maqamat, shifa is there. And then the tradition says, and tahta qubba of Hussein, your dua is accepted. A number of questions are arisen from this. Like I've said this, and if there's a thinking person, they could say, isn't this jabr? What's the difference between us and others who say that so-and-so died for our sins? How's it possible our future sins can be forgiven? No, there's two things that come from here. Firstly is this: Allah will give you tawfiq of repentance. And secondly, Allah will help you to become strong enough to be able to avoid sin. So your quwwah, your strength, and your realization against sin increases. Therefore, what does Hussein do? What is that? When you yourself come to realize the reality of sin, it's as if you become illuminated. Hussein illuminates your mind and heart. Ziyarah of Hussein does. But look, that's the second hadith, right? But the third hadith, I'll say this. There are people in Edinburgh today who will turn around to me and say, it's difficult for us to go on ziyarah because of, or in Glasgow or in Dundee or anywhere across the world. I remember when I used to go to Orlando at one stage, one of the brothers came, he was crying, he was saying, look, I've not got my passport yet. It's been many years, I've not got it, I can't travel out of the country. I really want to go to the ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, right? In that situation, what does one do? No, inshallah, you will go. And alhamdulillah, he did go. And he went for, mashallah, he did go. And I heard he went for a month or 2 months or whatever it was. Mashallah, he did go. But what is it that you can do? People say, well, why do we have to be, let's say, for example, disadvantaged because we can't go and ask for a hajat? You can ask for your hajat. This is what the important thing is. This is where the third hadith comes in. Third hadith says this. A person comes to the Imam and he says, Mawla, I have a big problem. There was a big debt on his shoulders. And Imam says, look, he goes like this. He goes, don't compromise yourself in front of others because there are others sitting there. Write it down. This is where the whole concept of ariza comes within Shiism. And this is why if you can't go to Imam Hussein and you have something that you want Imam Hussein to address, write it down, plaster it, seal it up, give it to a trusted brother or sister, tell them to put it to the zari of the Imam, inshallah. Your dua will be mustajab. So bear this in mind. Here the Imam then continues and he says, do not ever disclose your, you could say, weakness or your haja, but to 3 types of people. Imam says this, right? He says the first type is this. He says first, the pious, somebody who has deen. Don't go to a person who doesn't have deen and open up yourself and open up your weakness in front of them or your haja. Because other than disrespect, you won't get anything. Second thing then the Imam says, and he says, look, go to somebody who has fatuwa, sahib of fatuwa. They say in Farsi, Jawan Mardi. Somebody who is ghayur, who has ghayra. Go to a person like that because they won't compromise you. And look, each one of these are a spiritual maqam. If we had time, we'd go into it. But the final thing the Imam says again, he says, but if you can't find those 2, go to a person from a good family. Because those people of a good family know how to keep a secret, know how to help people, good family. And this is why in Islam, and especially in the akhbar of ahlul-bayt, the idea of a good family is always there. Look, today, if we have azadari, if you look at the standard bearers, they are people either from the good families, pious people from good families, or then they may be the sadat of the area. And traditionally, this is how it used to be. And today, we've forgotten the elders, especially you elders who are there from every family. Your ancestors installed Azza and Hussein and remembrance in your communities. Be you in East Africa, be you in Pakistan, be you in India, Iraq, Iran, Azerbaijan. Now that you've come to Scotland, or you were born in Scotland, or your grandparents came to Scotland, or your great-grandparents came to Scotland, or 5 generations have been in Scotland, just remember this. They came with the flag of Abbas in one hand and the book of Allah in the other hand. Now that you are the waratha, you're the inheritors of this, make sure this goes forward. Make sure this goes. Every family has a tradition. Every single family has a tradition. Whether you are from any of these families, I don't want to name all the families. I would do. I'm afraid I would leave one out. But from Aberdeen to Edinburgh, every family every single one of those families have elders who have passed down tradition. If you were the elder or the eldest of your family, or you were an elder of the community, make sure you keep that up. I still remember, it's worth saying this, I remember the elder of Chicago, Allah grant him a high maqam in heaven, in his 80s. He passed away as marhum last year, I heard a story 2 years ago. He with his own hands, because this was a culture, tradition in India. In fact, he was from Lucknow, and this is pre-partition, by the way. And his family used to make the coffin of Imam Hussein. And I still remember he would put the arrows in, you know, he would dress up the coffin like that. He would have the small cloth which symbolized the pieces of Qasim alayhi salam. And he would robe it himself, though he was of age. And when the tabut would come out, he himself would walk out with it. Why? This is a tradition he was teaching the youngsters of Chicago, that look, you know, I'm going to go. He has gone now, he's left this world, but you carry on this tradition. If you're the elder of your community, you must carry on. And this is why, beautifully, especially when I'm in Edinburgh and we're doing majalis or recording, when our brother Riaz comes, mashallah, and you recite so well. And I remember the traditions of East Africa, or Brother Asif when he recites, I remember the traditions of that, or Brother Malik, I remember the traditions of Punjab. Or for example, you have our other brothers where I remember the tradition of Yazd or the tradition of Mashhad, and especially this Muharram that's gone, when they recite, you remember those traditions. You are bringing the culture of Imam Hussein to your cities. That's what's important. So that's this tradition, a third tradition. And look, you know, our time is limited, so I'm just going to mention a final thing and I'm going to conclude. Conclude on this is that when Jibreel came to Rasulullah and he said, look, you know, from one of your two children, one on the right knee was Imam Hussein, on the left knee was Ibrahim. He says, Mashiach of Allah, such one has to go. Which one do you want to give up? His own son or his grandson? Who did he give up? He gave up Ibrahim. Why did he give up Ibrahim? Because Rasulullah said, if Hussein is to go, two people will be in pain, Ali and Zahra. I can't take that. That in itself shows you maqam of who this family is. Final thing is this. If today anyone is rejoicing, if anyone is rejoicing this birth, there are two people. One is Amir al-Mu'mineen and the other is Sayyidat al-Nisa. Let's be happy in their happiness. And they will be happy when they see their community with that love, taking their message forward. Inshallah, with that, let us pray to Allah. It's been a long discussion. Let us pray to Allah that Allah makes this month blessed for all of us. That Allah, in this beautiful month, instills in us patience, forbearance. Allah instills in us hikmah. Allah protects all of us, our community, this beautiful community, from any divisions, any negativity. Allah helps all of those who are going through difficulty. And most importantly, Allah makes us how He wants us to be, as compassionate and decent human beings, so that we may serve humanity in the best way, and that our Imam alayhi salam can be happy with us. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى الطاهرين.